bitter criticism reading something not related to the genocide on Al Jazeera, which is economy. I usually do this. Well, this is my routine. I skip everything to read economy news on Al Jazeera. And here we go. Economy, US elections 2024. A second Trump presidency has raised concerns of migrant workers' rights. Former US President Donald Trump has said if re-elected, there will be a return of ICE raids as during his first term. So, a very far-right candidate. Some of the largest immigration and customs enforcement (ICE) raids in years took place during Donald Trump's presidency in 2019. By Andy Hirschfeld, October 15. On September 20, 2023, Rosa Sanchez went to work picking carrots at Greenway Farms, one of the largest producers of carrots in the world, located in the Bakersfield, California area of the United States. Unfortunately, she will not last the day. She was fatally struck by a truck in the field. She was 58 years old. Fellow farm workers Alejandra Montoya saw the accident happen. Montoya said she was told to keep picking carrots as her colleague Sanchez's lifeless body lay there. For her, that was a reckoning moment. Quote, I felt a very profound lack of respect for Rosa Sanchez, who had just been killed. They had everyone else literally work around the body. That really emphasized how they really care more about the products than about the workers. Well, this is a classical move from capitalism. You should read Bertolt Brecht literature. Yeah, but this is impressive. The industry, isn't it? So industry is just like this. That really emphasized how they really care more about the product than about the workers, Montoya told Al Jazeera via translator. Originally, Montoya was afraid to speak up. She told Al Jazeera that her supervisors will often subtly threaten to turn them into immigration officials if they try to push for better working conditions. They really, quote, they really instill fear in anyone who speaks up, anyone who doesn't agree with the way things are, who says things to be better. They will tell them like, hey, you know you are undocumented. You shouldn't say anything. They will just straight up fire them, or people will quit on their own accord because they don't want any trouble, she continued. Over the years, Montoya has worked for Greenway through various labor contractors, common practice in the agricultural sector. She was working for Esparza Enterprises at the time of the accident. Greenway told Al Jazeera in a statement that the allegation that Greenway supervisors and its subcontractors threatened employees based on immigration status is false, and Greenway has a strict policy prohibiting retaliation against any employee or contract employee that reports suspected issues about working conditions. We are shocked to learn about these false allegations for the first time. Sparse Enterprises did not respond to Al Jazeera's request for comment. United Farm Workers (UFW), the organization that Montoya turned to see the options she had to speak about her concerns without risking her livelihood, told Al Jazeera that being on the receiving side of these threats was commonplace for migrant workers. Quote, "It's the simple fact that a workforce that's scared of getting deported is one that won't speak up for higher wages. It's going to be less willing to unionize. It's going to be one that might stay quiet when accidents happen." UFW's communications director Antonio de Loera Bros told Al Jazeera. Montoya is now protected from deportation through a program put in place last year by the Department of Homeland Security for undocumented immigrants who are victims of or witnesses of workplace exploitation, and allows them to apply for deferred action. Quote, "Employers who abuse their workers often say, if you report me, I will report you, and you are the one who will be deported." What do we say to that? Not on our watch. Acting Secretary of Labor Julie Su told a crowd at the United Farm Workers annual meeting in Bakersfield, California last month. Quote, "When workers report abuses, their immigration status cannot be weaponized against them," Su added. The program, called Deferred Action Labor Enforcement, or DALE, is what keeps Montoya safe from deportation and unafraid to speak up about the poor working conditions. Now we have a photograph. Photograph says, "Stop tearing families apart. Abolish ICE." Republican presidential nominee Donald Trump has said he will bring back workplace roundups of undocumented migrants if he is re-elected. However, this could be short-lived. The looming potential of a second administration of Republican nominee Donald Trump has raised concerns about the future welfare of immigrant workers in the U.S. Quote, "There is a sense of fear and terror that I and other workers feel when we hear talks of mass deportations and so on," Montoya said. Not only does Trump want to scrap the key migration measures that protect Montoya, but he and his hardline immigration advisors want to bring back policies fostering exploitative workplace practices that disproportionately affect migrant workers. Quote, "It will be increasingly difficult for them to kind of stand up for themselves and speak up out of fear." Nan Wu, research director for the American Immigration Council, told Al Jazeera. Return of workplace raids. And says, Trump and his hardline immigration ally Stephen Miller largely consider the architect of Trump's nativist immigration policy during his 2017 to 2021 term have said that roundups of migrants and at workplaces and other public areas will return. Some of the largest immigration and customs enforcement (ICE) immigration and customs enforcement raids in recent years took place during Trump's presidency in 2019. Immigration officials raided 7 chicken processing facilities across Mississippi in the largest workplace raid in a decade and arrested 680 people at the meat processing community in Mississippi. Of those, 300 were ultimately released, but Trump still touted this as a win. He said serve as a very good deterrent. The Mississippi raid was one of the 14 workplace ICE raids during Trump's administration. 2 years later, when Joe Biden became president, a Department of Homeland Security (DHS) report referred to the practice of workforce raids as a way exploitative employers have used to suppress collective action for better working conditions. DHS then ended their use. Quote, bringing back those ICE raids is really draconian. It just has a chilling effect on all kinds of aspects of our society. When we think about things like public safety and healthcare, migrants are less likely to seek help out of fear that their immigration status will be at risk. This is the similar impact David Shinkanchan, policy director at the Workers' Defense Action Fund, told Al Jazeera. There's a graphic. And the graphic says immigrants in the U.S. labor force, immigrant labor percent by industry. And there's an unauthorized part of the graphic. Natural resources is the biggest. Authorized, so natural resources, construction, other professional services, leisure and hospitality, manufacturing, transportation and utilities, and so on. According to reporting from the outlet to the counter, managers at Koch Foods, one of the plants at the center of the 2019 Mississippi raid, allegedly threatened several female employees at the plant with firing and deportation. The threats came alongside sexual harassment and radical racial discrimination allegations against Koch Foods. The plant settled a lawsuit for $3.75 million only a year before the Mississippi raid. At the time, Koch said it did not knowingly hire undocumented workers, which reporting from the counter disputes. Koch Foods, former parent company, BC Rogers, actively recruited Central American and Caribbean migrants to work in their facilities. The initiative was dubbed, quote, the Hispanic Project. The company did not respond to Al Jazeera's request for comment. Koch Foods is far from alone. Employers far and wide have used threats of reports to immigration officials to prevent pushes for better working conditions. This includes a construction company in Boston, Massachusetts in 2019, a move which ultimately led to a lawsuit that forced the company to pay $650,000 in damages. Another case, a restaurant owner in upstate New York allegedly tipped off immigration officials about the immigration status of a former worker, Shui Shan. ICE arrested him in the middle of a deposition in which he claimed that the very same employer owed him $200,000 in back wages. Quote, this kind of a negative pathway of scaring certain populations into taking less is allegedly happening, and it will get much worse for sure if there were workplace raids. Saru Jayaraman, founder of One Fair Wage and advocacy group pushing the raise U.S. wages, told Al Jazeera. Quote, all the gains that workers, both immigrants and non-immigrants, have been gaining over the last couple of years, could be lost through this kind of activity. Jayaraman continued. While the raids under the Trump administration were some of the biggest in U.S. history, the strategy was not isolated to his time in office. In 2012, a group of undocumented migrants raised concerns about workplace safety issues and pay discrimination at all dry water damage experts, a Louisiana company tasked with cleaning up water damage after hurricanes that hit the Gulf Coast. The company then allegedly reported its own workers to immigration authorities. Allegations of exploitative, misleading, or low pay are a common problem, with 76% of immigrants workers in some past surveys reporting that they have been the victims of wage theft, and 37% reporting earning less than minimum wage. Quote, all of this just gets so much worse if workers are afraid to speak up, Jayaraman added. And there's another graphic. Distribution of undocumented immigrants in the U.S. industries. The largest percent of unofficial immigrant population works in construction, followed by leisure and hospitality. Trump's team said it will expedite the deportation process under an outdated law called the Alien Enemies Act, which expands the ability to expel foreign nationals from a country that the U.S. is at war with. This will essentially allow the Trump administration to deport people without due process. The same law was invoked during World War II to imprison Japanese Americans in internment camps. Trump has previously floated the idea of war in Mexico targeting drug cartels. UFW suggests that even the threat of such policies is enough to suppress workers. Quote, it is enough to scare a lot of workers into silence, into accepting bad working conditions and accepting unsafe working conditions and lower wages, UFW's De Lorea Bros said. Trump allies cut key worker safeguards. Last year, Texas Governor Greg Abbott signed a bill barring cities from crafting their own mandates. The move has been largely seen as political. Texas major cities are mostly Democratic and in favor of regulation, a stark contrast to its far-right conservative state government. The law negated local workplace safety mandates like water breaks, and cities like Dallas and Austin require, especially in sectors like construction that have an immigrant-heavy workforce. Such policies put workers in unsafe conditions. Opponents of the law say that they further elevate the needs for workers to advocate for better working conditions. Quote, it raises the stakes because people are dying because of dangerous working conditions in Texas, Shinkan-chan added. Yet the return of ICE raids will make it more risky for immigrant workers to push back against these new measures. Migrant workers account for a staggering 40% of the construction sector's workforce in the Lone Star State. While the law is in effect, it is being challenged in court on constitutional grounds. Texas is also one of the most migrant-heavy states in the country. Its undocumented population is estimated at 1.7 million people, 85% of whom hail from Mexico and Central America. This is at a time when Texas leads the country with new home construction and sees record heat waves regularly. Last year was the second hottest summer on record there and killed more than 300 people. Shinkan-chan says harsh immigration policies have deterred people from speaking out. Quote, "They are staying silent because of the fear of the highest consequences you can think of, being separated from your family and losing your livelihood." Shinkan-chan continued. Abbott's representatives did not respond to Al Jazeera's request for comment. Texas is not alone. In Florida, far-right Republican Governor Ron DeSantis signed a comparable bill into law which took effect in July and which prevents cities from enacting heat safety regulations. This year, Florida clocked in its hottest summer on record. The state did not have any of its own heat regulations on the books, which was shielded businesses from state level repercussions for heat-related illnesses or deaths on their watch. In Florida, non-citizen immigrant workers make up 22% of the outdoor workforce. That is almost twice as much of the demographic group's overall share of the workforce. DeSantis' office did not respond to Al Jazeera's request for comment. Magnay Labor Management, which provides agricultural workers to clients across Florida, was fined by the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, OSHA, after a migrant worker died from a heat stroke in 2023, but was not subject to any repercussions on the state level. The company has said it will contest the federal fine. The Department of Labor did not provide Al Jazeera with a statement. Magnay Labor Management did not respond to a request for comment. In July, OSHA proposed new rules that will mandate water and rest breaks. If the rule moves forward, it will go into effect in 2025. If Trump is elected, it is not clear if the rule will stay in place or be enforced. During his term, Trump scaled back workplace safety inspections even as there were more workplace deaths. Quote, "This combination of factors will create situations that will be extremely difficult for workers to seek better working conditions for themselves." American Immigration Council's Wu added. The Trump campaign did not respond to Al Jazeera's request for comment. Source Al Jazeera. And finally, the end, such a huge article.